And here we are, yet again on another block chat. I think this week we have the 104th episode of block chat coming up. Thank you everyone for tuning in. This one is going to be really special. Not only are we going to talk about the latest news around Blocksquare, but with me today is one of my co-founders, Peter Merc, who's our Chief Compliance Officer and has been instrumental to the milestone that we have achieved at the beginning of this year and that we're kind of disclosing officially this week. Peter, how are you? I know that you've been feeling a bit sick this week, but hopefully you're going to get better. So we're not able to kind of record from directly our office, but doing this online. Thanks for taking the time and coming to the blockchain.
Hi, it's good to be here. Let's leave my health issues aside. I would focus on positive news related to Blocksquare, and I think, as you mentioned, we reached an important milestone, and I think this is something that we should all talk about.
It's a big milestone. It seems to me, because we've been working on this for quite a long time, that it's nothing really happened. But essentially, looking at the response from the news, I think that something big happened. We went out with a PR, our PR agency plus our marketing team led by Julia made an amazing job, and the news got picked up in quite different publications. What's your take on this?
Yeah, I would say that it was quite a long journey, not a simple one. So our initial idea was that we would be some kind of infrastructure provider for the tokenization, but along the road, we figured out based on questions from our not only questions but also expectations from our clients and business partners to offer some kind of turnkey solution. So not to be only an infrastructure provider, but also to offer a regulatory or legal compliant solution. And I think this is something that we finally achieved after all these years. So what we did is that we not only focus now on property owners to make them this tokenization process a lot easier, but on the other side, of course, we also need to take care about the investors, about the on the token holders, and we think that this final solution that we have, and I guess we'll be talking about it during today's talk, is that we found a robust framework for the investors, which would make this kind of investments much safer.
So what's the main difference between the model we had so far with the corporate resolution? Something that this is kind of making it, shaping it in a different way. I say that it's an add-on that was, however, kind of really critical to come to investors of different sizes, not just retail investors that would like to dip their toes, but maybe to institutional investor and saying, hey, look, this is the real deal. This is how it's structured. And it's a well-structured investment, and the risk profile of this investment is now totally different than it was.
Yeah, definitely. Putting land register and putting a notary into the tokenization equation, I think it's a different ball game now. So now I think we can be talking about notarized real estate tokenization framework. So this is something that I would say is this most important added value compared to the models we had before, and especially compared to the tokenization models which are popular in the industry now. As you mentioned in your introductory words, this is a unique approach that we are offering now with this tokenization, and combining this technology, meaning on-chain infrastructure, with off-chain old traditional legal system. This is something that's our final offer now.
And the journey to get there was definitely not easy, right? As you mentioned, it was like we started this in 2023. There was this idea that we had how it could potentially be done, right? And then,
Yeah.
you know, as those who follow us, they know that we did this pilot on actually on the same property that was the first property we've ever tokenized, the parking space. So we used that as a sandbox for us to also integrate this notarized agreement part. And we went to the notary here in Slovenia, and we discussed with her about it, and she found some really good ideas around how to do it, although she was not, you know, at all really into blockchain or tokenization. So it was a totally an interesting test to do. And then now, you know, the journey that we've done with CMS then in 2024. I remember that after that pilot, we wanted to do another pilot in a different jurisdiction, and then the owner came back to us with some very valuable feedback brought to us from their lawyer, and it was about liabilities and you know what happens in case of Blocksquare's default as a technology startup, right? A lot of startups default, and then we said, look, we need to find and establish a separate company, a separate entity that's not going to carry the liabilities of that technology startup so that this can be done in a very safe way. And if you're establishing a new company, then obviously the question becomes, where do you establish that company? And that's where CMS came in as a partner. And then the journey began. Do you remember those calls we had around in different countries with CMS
Yeah, of
offices?
course. I remember them, but I mostly remember our initial talks with the notary. So I guess this was, when I look back, it's a little bit funny, but I know that at that time we were quite struggling. So you can imagine a notary, they have you know, notaries in general, they have practically the same business for for last 200 years, and then you approach them saying that now you would like to you would like to some kind of to issue a loan agreement with tokens, and you would put also a collateral on top, which would be attached to underlying property. So, you know, explaining them what is blockchain, how it works, what are the tokens, so that all the tokens are not the same. So if we put some tokens in the loan agreement, it's not the same if somebody pays you back in Bitcoin. So that means that the deal is closed. So that was I would guess I would say a really huge challenge, but it was some kind of learning process for us too. So how to explain it in a simple way, you know, because they, of course, notaries, they understand legal business, but you need to use these old school legal terms, and you need to apply these new business models, these new financial instruments, if we can say that these tokenized tokens back to property are some kind of financial instrument. So you need to use all old school terms, old school models, and apply them to new business models, to new tokens, and only in that way you will be successful in explaining the notary what you would like to achieve. And that was the whole process. And after, I would say, few long talks with the notary, we finally managed to do that in 2023. And I would say this was the really huge milestone, and everything afterwards was deriving from that particular moment.
It was quite. I remember we were at a moment thinking that it's not going to be possible, and then, you know, and then something happened. The notary came back with an idea, and that was great because she was actually, you know, open and saw this as a challenge, and it took this as a challenge. And I hope that the notaries that we'll be working with throughout Europe, and you know, throughout this year, will be having the same mindset, openness to think differently, and kind of learn from the previous pilots. So we're not doing the first one now. It's going to be the second one, right? And the second
Yeah.
one is already taking learnings from the first one, applying, you know, improvements on that agreement, that's basis for the collateralization of the tokens with the charge on the registry. Each jurisdiction has its nuances, but more or less, kind of, it's more or less it's kind of the same, or the same principles apply, and that's
I
what I
fully
love
agree.
about it.
I fully agree. Yes. Look, what's important in our tokenization model now? So we have We need a notary, we need a land registry, and we need a charge in the land registry. So this is something that is practically known in every jurisdiction. So that's why I am really comfortable to say that our tokenization solution is jurisdictional agnostic, meaning that there might be some modifications within some jurisdictions, but in general, I think it will be possible to apply this kind of tokenization model in practically every jurisdiction.
And here I think the partnership with CMS really comes in as a a crucial point for us, because they have offices all over the world. So if they don't have an office directly, they have a partner law office that they work with within that jurisdiction, and that makes things much shorter for us. It might be a bigger expenditure as well, but the question is, value for money, and I think here we're really getting what we want at this stage. The second part is going to be the toughest. I think it's getting costs down in a way that we can structure it in a commercially viable product, right? Just as banks can issue loans, and the costs of acquiring a loan is quite known. There's some processing fees, that there's the notary fees, and that's it, right? In a way, here it needs to be structured the same. So that way to getting us into a commercially viable business with this, after we do these pilots, I think that's where Fergus Murphy and his expertise will come in really handy, I think, because being part of the banking industry for such a long time in high positions, and knowing from them in out of how basically mortgage loans are being issued and operated and offered. I think that's kind of a really a good resource for us to utilize. But going back to this notarization process itself. So now we're in a stage, we have a legal entity incorporated in Luxembourg, and that gives us the ability to execute pilots. This is where I get really excited, because it's doing things, not just talking about them, not just putting things on paper, but actually going to a property owner, going to CMS local office branch in the jurisdiction where we want to go, getting connected with a notary in that jurisdiction, and hopefully CMS's connections are going to help us get the right notaries with the right mindset, and then executing the whole thing. So what we're doing is really preparing everything so that it's as clear as possible what the pilot is about. Where do you see the biggest challenges in executing these pilots throughout this year?
Look, I think that most of the hard work was already done or will be done, and it will be done by us and in cooperation with CMS. As you mentioned, they are not cheap, but I would say that cost benefit here pays it off. So you need this kind of centralized approach, meaning that if you want to make a scalable solution, meaning that you want to go globally as fast as possible, then you need to have this centralized approach. Meaning that you only speak with one legal office, which has a network of legal offices. Meaning that you can explain them everything what you need. You put it into a memo, and then this memo is then forwarded to all possible or required offices around Europe and around the world. So I would say that where I see a challenge is, of course, coming to a new market for the first time. You need to find, as you mentioned, a notary. Notary here will be crucial. So we were quite lucky with the notary here in Ljubljana, in Slovenia, because she was really open to some innovative things. So I put a lot of hope in CMS here, that they will be able to introduce us to this kind of notaries. And I would, as I said a few sentences back, I think the most of the hard work was done. But now this, many things that will put all the puzzles together. Meaning that we will need to find out which are these modifications that will be required for specific jurisdictions, and then I guess it will be learning by doing. So together with the local lawyers, together with the notary, I think we'll do an initial pilot for each market, and from that end, it will be much easier.
So it's going to be interesting to see then how the markets are going to accept this new model. But in general, what I see is that with this, what we've achieved is, yes, there's a benefit ultimately for the end users, the investors that will buy into tokens, because now they have much, more clarity and certainty that tokens, in case things go wrong, that they have a way of recourse, right? And they will not stay empty-handed, right? On the other end, it's the marketplace operators. So in the middle, there's the property owners. Yes, they are now have a much easier job than before, because they don't need to take the burden of being perceived as the issuers of the tokens. The issuance happens through Luxembourg's Blocksquare Luxembourg. The marketplace operators now have the same kind of burden being lifted off of them, because the complexities of issuing the tokens in a compliant way are again taken away, abstracted away from them, and Blocksquare Luxembourg is taking care of it. So do you think that, based on, sometimes I know that the sales team kind of includes you as well in that process, where there's always legal questions and compliant questions when it comes to companies who are kind of open to operate a new marketplace, because they're excited about it, but then they're like, what do we do? What's the regulatory framework around it? Are we compliant? Can we even do it? What do you see this change shifting? Do you see that might change things at Blocksquare as well?
Yeah, look, let's focus now firstly on the investor's perspective. So what I think, not only in real estate tokenization industry, but in, let's say, in general, real world assets tokenization, what I see the biggest risk is so-called double spending. So you are an owner of property or any kind of asset, you tokenize it and then you sell it. So the token holders are left without any underlying asset. That's I think the biggest risk from the investor's perspective. With our solution, with this notarized loan and with charge in the land register, I think we ultimately solve that risk. So investors can be really enjoy having these kind of tokens, this kind of investment in their investment portfolio. From the perspective of property owners, which would like to tokenize their properties, the economic rights deriving from the properties, as you said. So this is something that came along all the way when we were discussing with potential clients. So the initial question, or the most important questions, was not about technology. It was about compliance. What do I need to do in order to issue this kind of token so that I will be fully legally compliant? Do I need some kind of crypto license? Do I need some kind of MiFID financial instrument license? And with this solution we have now, I think we solve those issues. So the solution is regulatory light, meaning that how those tokens were structured and the loan, the whole infrastructure around the loan was structured, is that this kind of tokens do not fall within crypto regulation or within MiFID II, meaning regulated financial regulation. So it's I would say from the perspective of property owners, it's much more easier and it's much more safer for them to do this kind of transaction.
So you mentioned regulation here, and before the new regulation in Europe, MiCA, the only active regulation was either nothing or MiFID II, right? That was kind of those two things. And then obviously, the regulators were always kind of, well, this falls under MiFID II, right? Without a shadow of a doubt, right? But now we have also MiCA regulation. And does that, how do you perceive this in connection with our notarized tokenization framework? Does that have an impact?
Of course, it has an impact. It has an impact in general. Let's imagine how were the things before MiCA. So the only directly applicable regulation to crypto projects was anti-money laundering regulation. So everything other was let's say left to the discretion of the regulators. Meaning, let's say, put the position of Slovenian regulator from 5-6 years ago was, okay, you can do whatever you like. We will just watch what you are doing, but don't screw your investors. And that were their position, because there were no regulatory framework especially related to crypto assets. Now we have this specialized European Union wide regulation in place, and this makes everybody much more easier to operate within crypto industry. Not only, for example, me, who as a lawyer or advisor, compliance advisor, but also projects like or companies like Blocksquare, which are offering their services within this industry. With clear regulatory framework, it is much better, and it's much more safer to also scale the business, because with MiCA you will have this EU passporting, meaning that if you will be legally compliant in one European Union country, this will be legally compliant through whole European Union. So now we know for sure that we have fully legally compliant solution for Luxembourg, which means that it's a fully legally compliant solution for the whole European Union.
And here, to expand on this thought, we as a company, we have relationships with property owners, but in the first place, marketplace operators. So these are two types of, let's say, and then number 3 is obviously token investors, right? That's kind of the 3 type of users that utilize our infrastructure and that can interact using it. We've talked about the property owners and abstracting away the issuance challenges or regulatory challenges of issuing tokens away from them. So that's something, a tick box there, we solved it. We also talked about the end users, protecting them with a charge, a lien, if you will, on the title deed of the property, and basically giving them this ultimate protection against the so-called double spending issue, and as well the default issue, in case of the property owner defaulting. Another positive is the property owners actually remain owners and in control of the property. They just have, as before, this outstanding obligation towards token holders through the corporate resolution. So these things are now solved. Now we go to marketplace operators. On the premise of our infrastructure being built on top of Web3 in a DeFi environment where there's self-custody of assets, where transactions are done through smart contracts peer-to-peer, where the secondary market is basically a peer-to-peer market that happens through a protocol that's not even built and designed by us, but by 0x project. And basically our marketplace platform just kind of utilizes that infrastructure. And then we have the distribution of revenues and the whitelisting, which is mandatory KYC of users because of AML. If you kind of look at that infrastructure and then you go to a marketplace operator, and the marketplace operator says, okay, now based on the structure of the tokens through Luxembourg, what kind of license do I need?
Yeah, look. I would say that as long as we will remain decentralized, so within DeFi, there will be no license required. So at least for now, DeFi was left out of MiCA. So it's same as, for example, NFTs. And we are expecting now MiCA 2. So of course, this will be a a few years process to finally adopt this set of laws. But for now, decentralized applications or decentralized platforms are not regulated within MiCA. And there is also a DLT pilot regime. This is also something that is, I would say, mostly useful for financial institutions, for exchanges. But this is also something that if you would like to move away from this fully decentralized to partly centralized solution, we can also use this DLT pilot regime. But this has a limitation. I think it will be only enforced until 2028. But this is something that we will also take a little bit into it, because I think it's something that is attractive for us, because if we want to build some kind of multilateral trading facility, connecting all the token holders or the property owners, so creating one really huge marketplace, connecting all the stakeholders on that marketplaces. I think it's wise from us, or we should do it to study all possible solutions. But as I mentioned, for now, as long as we remain fully decentralized, there is no legislation which would apply to this kind of marketplace.
So essentially, if we look at this holistically, the move to Luxembourg really kind of solves problems on all three parts of our kind of user base or our customers. And essentially, my view is that through this, our business is gonna just thrive, because now we have clear answers that we can kind of write down to our sales team, and the sales team can hand over to potential marketplace operators. They can use this when they talk to property owners and investors alike. And I think that clarity is something that previously was not there. I just wanted to go a bit deeper into, or more in detail in this conversation that we're having today, because a lot of times we just marginally mention it, but we don't go into the nitty-gritty of why this certainty is so important. And so now we've done, through our launchpad, I think around 10 or 11 projects, I believe, so far, that have received community funding through the Oceanpoint launchpad for marketplaces. We have a nice pipeline of new ones coming up, and with the Luxembourg entity, I believe there's going to be more and more of marketplaces being operated. Now we have mainly seen startups. Do you see that this change might bring more corporate marketplaces to emerge?
Look, industry is evolving really fast. Look at who is entering the industry now. All the big banks, all the investment funds. This was something that was hard to imagine 5-6 years ago. So I would say that this landscape will change. And maybe today it's a more retail business, but I think it will go really fast towards being more corporate business. What I would also add, you mentioned all these positive aspects. I would say also that what is really positive is, and that's also the answer why Luxembourg. So I think it's important to address this. So why we moved to Luxembourg? I think that this is the jurisdiction, the environment which knows a lot about tokenization. So of course, with our business models, we are unique, but if you want to talk with the local lawyers, with local notaries, also potentially with local regulators, if they are familiar with these new business models, with these new business approaches, it is much easier to move things faster forward.
Great. So to sum it up, I think a big milestone has been achieved this week officially. It was in the making for a longer period of time, as we mentioned. A lot of hard work, a bit of luck, but I think it was mainly hard work here, putting minds together, trying to make it happen, finding new ways around, things that were on the way. obstacles. As well, you mentioned Luxembourg. They know how to tokenize real estate. They have everything, scripted already. And then we come, and it took us months to talk with CMS so they would accept the way we want to do things. Because the difference is, and this is key, I think, the model that has been there with the securitization model is great to securitize bonds. It's great to securitize gold, if you will. It's great to securitize, big market cap assets. But when you want to tokenize a property that's worth 1 million, it doesn't work. And our model works. And so the real estate is different because it's a huge asset class. It's the biggest one in the world, but it's composed out of the smaller properties that are scattered around the world in different countries.
Denis, real estate is different, but we are also different. So this was also one, I wouldn't say funny story, but it was an interesting story. So how we approached Luxembourg lawyers at the beginning. So we told them, okay, this is the tokenization process that was successful in Slovenia, and now we would like to do the same thing, the same process in Luxembourg. And in that, if you remember, the first memo was, okay, so we understand what you would like to do. Maybe most probably it will be applicable or regulatory compliant in Luxembourg, but we would do it like that. And then they just copy pasted what everybody else in the industry has been doing in the field of real estate or real world asset tokenization in the past. But we wanted to be unique. That was our added value, or let's say competitive advantage that we wanted to achieve in that market. So it took us a little bit longer, I would say 2-3 months longer, so that they finally understood what we would like to achieve, that we don't want to be like everybody else on the market, and here we are today.
Exactly. So perseverance and knowing what you want to achieve, understanding the topic well. I think that's all that kind of made this possible. So congrats to you, Peter, and to the whole Blocksquare team. I think we've done an amazing job here. And thank you again for teamwork, and thank you again to our community. I know sometimes, it's tough because you're following, crypto in general as a market, and it has its ups and downs. But what we're doing is building the foundations of migrating real estate on chain, and that's not an easy job. It's not a small job to do. It's a big thing, and if done properly, and I believe we're doing it properly, the sky is the limit, I would say. So let's keep on working what we've been doing so far, adding pieces to the puzzle together, and the future, I believe, is bright.
I think we have a concept now, so we know what to do, and now we need a pilot project, so we'll have a proof of concept. So that's the next step.
The second proof of concept. First one, 23. Yeah. The second one, 25. And there's going to be
one with the new entity. So that
exactly. And then from there, we're going to do pilots in different jurisdictions and work on the commercialization with the jurisdiction that we open up. I believe the first few are going to be somewhere between Belgium, Austria, and Slovenia, of course. And then we take it from there.
Okay.
Thank you, Peter.
Step by step.
Thank you, Peter, for the time, for coming to the Blockjet. Get well soon.
Okay, I will.
And see you offline when you do. All right. Thank you, everyone. Bye.